Hi, welcome back to My Life with Plants. I'm Newman, and today we're going to have a little houseplant tour in the bedroom. This is where I keep a lot of my plants, so stay tuned. Okay, we're going to first start with this one here, and this is Philodendron Brazil. Philodendron Brazil is a popular houseplant with almost everybody, and I'm sure everybody has one. But what I love about it is it's got some of my favorite colors, which is light and dark green, and the combination on every single leaf or every single pattern is unique. So it's like artwork. This one just has a full green leaf. And it is situated by a south-facing window, but there's shade cloth on the window to keep the sunlight dappled. I water this once a week, but it just depends where you live. For me, every week it starts to dry out considerably, and then I just give it a good water. Over here you can see that it's starting to produce an offshoot here with all these nice aerial roots. So it is in full mode growth. I do cut it often. I'm not sure where that last is, one of the last cuts that was made during the winter, and I keep the pieces and grow them in water. And if anybody wants one, they can just have one from me. Next up is this Cylindropuntia monstros, and it's been growing in here for quite a few years now. It's a nice big plant. Its growing medium is starting to dry out now, so that would be a good time to water it. If it looks moist on the top, I don't. I leave it till the next day or the day after, but it tends to like slightly moist growing conditions, so it's enjoying life in this window. It's got the shade cloth there, of course. This is a Haworthia that I brought indoors because of the winter. I have one out there already. It has a protective dome put over the top, etc. There was no space for it, so I brought it inside. I'm going to give it away to somebody. Can't stay in here during the summer, it just gets too humid. Okay, next up, right up the top here, we'll take it down. This is an Angraecum disticum. I'm going to try it out as a houseplant, although it is best to grow it in a cool greenhouse. Going to give it a try. It's in sphagnum moss in a little basket, and when the moss starts to dry, so it's no longer moist, it's just starting to lose it's drier than moist. So when you touch it, you can just start to feel that dry feeling. That's when I water it again. It has lovely little white flowers. They could be fragrant, not sure. So if we look up here, it hangs out up there, right? So it doesn't get direct sunlight. Over here we have the lovely flowers of this Tillandsia cotton candy hybrid. It's in a toothbrush holder. I put it in sphagnum moss. And it just hangs up there. Just on a wall pin. You can see there. It used to have a sucker on it. So I just put it up like so. Just an idea, decoration idea. This one is Ionantha rubra. Looking forward to getting nice ruby colored leaves. This is a very old Hoya compacta. These leaves are a little pale because during the summertime I didn't have the shade cloth and it got quite a lot of sun exposure, so I just made the leaves a little lighter in color, but it's not unhealthy one little bit, because when you look down here you can see this lovely green. You can still see the peduncles there. They're starting to get active again. Another branch here. This is a big old peduncle. I dropped one last year. So it's about a 5 or 6 year old plant. Next up, starting from the top, Ceropegia woodii, or the chain of hearts. Does it get bald on top? Of course, always does. Can't help it. But if you keep it nice and happy, you end up with something like this. I like its little, they're like rhizomes actually. They're not seeds and they're not bulbs. They're like rhizomes that store energy, and when they come in contact with soil they start new roots out of the, right at the apex here, and they can grow new plants. I've always liked Ceropegia woodii because of its amazing leaves. Thick, succulent, heart-shaped leaf with that silvery coloring over the top of the dark green. Today's temperature. There it is. 26 degrees right on the button. Since it's the daytime, the hygrometer says 40% humidity. During the night, the humidity will go up. Okay, over here we have this Tillandsia usinoides. Am I saying that right? Just noticed it had a flower right there. It's a lovely orange flower. If it has a succession, it's actually got a bud there too. So it has a bunch of flowers. Maybe it'll have some fragrance. I just water that once a week. It seems to be happy. Okay, next. Better take it down. Next is Hoya Crimson Queen, or is it the Princess? It's got the variegation on the inside. You can see right there, and it doesn't want to focus. It's starting off a new adventitious stem. That one died back, but that was last summer. It's got a peduncle right there. Over here you can see these new leaves coming out, so it's in growth. And there's another adventitious growth there. Now, I keep my Hoyas in cash pots. Why? Because I notice that they like humidity around the roots. It doesn't mean that they like to sit in water, but actually I have this one sitting in a little bit of water because it has, what happened was it died. The main plant died because I underwatered it, and then it got too dry, and then I go ahead and water it again, and of course the root system had died back because it didn't keep up with the watering, and it caused a rot and all sorts of issues. So now I regrew it in a glass, and it got water roots. So ever since then it's had water roots, so I've kept a little water in the reservoir, just half an inch, and it drinks it when it wants. It's in a barky mixture. I just noticed there, look, starting to grow from there too. I give it a slight, very very mild fertilizer, ever so slightly. It's less than a quarter of the recommended dosage, or even less than that. I think that's all they need, because you can see on the top here, see the salt? You can still see the remnants of salt right there, which is washed away because fertilizer, once again, leaves salts behind. So if you have salts left behind, it means that there's unused fertilizer. Just keep watering it until it's used up what it has, because you don't want to just keep applying and applying. Over here we have lovely tillandsia and wound up wire. This is doing really well now, and it is my Peperomia Hope. And Peperomia Hope started off from a little branch because I bought a plant for a friend, which was this Peperomia, and I just took one cutting. And it grew, and it grew, and it grew, and it's going all the way down, over a meter long. I took cuttings off it, and as you can see here, you have the beginnings of a new branch, and up above right here, I just put it in a glass of water, and it got some roots, and then I put it in moist sphagnum. So there's a new plant there, and it comes in a jelly container. I just reused what I have at hand. It just hangs up the top here, right there. Next one I have, I gotta take it out. I decided to try bulbophyllum. This is bulbophyllum frostii. So that looked like a T, but it's supposed to be an F. Frostii. And it has two growths there, so it has pretty long stems before the bulb starts growing. As you can see there, it tends to have a long stem, and then it has these lovely round bean-shaped bulbs with very thick coriaceous leaves, like leathery thick. And it grows in sphagnum moss, and I keep it moist. I don't let it dry out. And I made this terrible wire hanger, but I like having my wire hangers because I can make them to whatever height I want. And the reason why I made it so short on the wire hanger is I do not want it in full sun. It's okay, the heat and the bright light, but no direct. This is almost going to flower. It's going to have a massive flowers actually, and it's a, let me take it down so we can have a better look. Everything can be makes you wonder how things get caught, doesn't it? I'm going to try to spin this around without snapping the flower spike off it. I'm going to try to give you a view of this Phalaenopsis. It is growing in a basket that has many holes punched in it. A basket within a basket. This basket is full of slots, so there's plenty of airflow, and this one that it's sitting in is full of holes. It hasn't been repotted for over 3 years, and it never will have to be repotted, and I'm going to let you know why in another video coming up, because I'm convinced that when plants grow in nature, they don't get repotted, do they? So I've been asking questions to some other friends of mine. They can't give me an answer. They just tell me that it needs to be repotted because it goes acidic, the soil. I have no acidic problems whatsoever in my medium, not anymore, since I've done something to it to stop that. And the plants are far more happier because they don't get their roots disturbed. And that's what bothers them the most and puts them in bad health. So this is a Hoya that I picked up because I had to. Wasn't planning on it. It just says Hoya species, so it could be absolutely anything. It's even got a heart-shaped kind of leaf there, and then you can see it's got a darker green. It could be, it's kind of has a little bit of everything in it, but we'll find out what it is. I'm not sure if it's a climber or a hanger, but I did put it in this cheap cash pot, once again because it likes to stay humid, and I just gonna water it when it's dry or just starting to dry out on the surface, drain out any water left over, and it is living up here. Next I will take down this. This is just my way of growing Tillandsias, but I like to grow them in sphagnum moss because I like to keep them as moist as possible, and this has been drying out pretty quick because of this weather, but I give it a good soak so that my Tillandsias can stay humid and moist longer. So I got a bulbosa there, and this one is called a Bailey. It's almost succulent. That big one there is a caput medusa. And this one hanging down the bottom is a brachiocaulus. It's more green, so you know that it likes a lot more water and a lot more shade than these other ones. And this one is an Cepharia Fencephoria, which is a nice leafy one that has those long leaves. Yeah, growing in sphagnum moss. You can feel moisture, very slight moisture, so it's going to need another water tonight. And it just hangs. These baskets are from the Daishal shop. Next one there that I'm not going to bother taking down is one that I've been growing from a leaf cutting, which is this one. Still has the name on it. It's a German Empress, Epiphyllum German Empress. And what's magnificent about this is once this plant gets bigger and matures, and when it's ready, probably next year, it'll have flowers that are in every single node along the leaves here. Every single aerial, the aerials are on the edge of epiphytic cacti. Every single area will have a flower, and it's bright pink. Okay, next, this is the very common and familiar one that everybody knows, and it is Hoya Matilde. And Matilde's been growing really well for me. It's got one adventitious growth there. This is all new. You can see there that we have some new growth here, all of this. You can see the little leaves there, yep. And there too, you can see those leaves. So there's growth's coming out everywhere, and we got a nice new peduncle growing there, and we got a lot of older peduncles, and the older peduncles also produce flowers. And once again, it's in a cache pot. This time it's terracotta, and in there is cool and humid with just a tiny bit of water, just a tiny bit, not much at all left over. I tip it and drain it all out every time I water, but it kind of likes it like this. It likes the cache pot. If I didn't have the cache pot, it would dry out too fast, and then I would have problems with my root system. Like I said before, it would dry out and then get too dry, and then you water it and it causes rot. But having the cache pot keeps the roots nice and cool and humid is what it likes best. It's been going really well for me that way. Next up, more tillandsias that are in this Dysol basket that I packed with sphagnum moss, and I've got a Myrmecodes, Tillandsia myrmecodes. Myrmecodes means plant inhabited by ants, or some meaning like that. So these tend to be inhabited by ants. This is a nice clustering one, so as it gets older it will turn into a cluster. I'm hoping that this sphagnum moss keeps up moisture and humidity for the plants once I water them, otherwise they just dry out far too fast. This one is a Capitata peach. It's got that lovely peach to it. And this one is a Brachycollis. And this one is Solsanata. I'm not going to say it how it's written in Japanese because it just wouldn't. I just got to pronounce it English way. Solsanata. Right. Look at that. Hoping it'll fill up this basket nicely. Tillandsias are a nice addition to your collection. Next we have this magnificent thing here, and it is Hoya Sunrise. In Hoya Sunrise, okay. Before I say anything more, we have a peduncle. Now this Hoya Sunrise is the most delicious smelling, has the most delicious smelling flowers I've ever smelt. Besides a frangipani. The closest I can get to describing the smell of these flowers is like a frangipani. Frangipani is a plumeria. We all know what that is. These flowers are just so good, it's incredible. And this plant, there's a peduncle right there, if we can focus on it. I need to touch the screen, but I don't have 3 hands. I need 3. I need another hand. I could hit it with my nose. There we go. So I got little buds coming out of this peduncle that was formed last year, or the year before. And it has lots of new growth too, so right here. Some nice new growth. Everywhere, here, there, everywhere. And it is in this porcelain pot. So it's kind of like terracotta that's being glazed, and then with this glazing, and it is in a cache pot once again. It doesn't like sitting in water. It rots straight away. So once again I got to tip all the water out, but it retains humidity in the roots, so it doesn't make the roots dry out, and that's why it's looking so good. This one here is Hoya Bella. Hoya Bella was developing this problem on the leaves. It's not a pest, it's a cultural problem. It's called edema. So Hoya Bella loves water. But sometimes even it can get too much water and it can get edema. Edema just comes out. Just having trouble focusing. I'm trying. Hang on. Let me keep trying. There we go. So you can see it. It's white patches that when you run your finger over it, you can feel it. It's kind of sunken in. It's almost like burning. But this is not burning at all. This is called edema. Edema is taking on too much water. Causes the plant to explode its cells, which results in this burnt feeling. And then it sheds those leaves. So I quickly dried it out. I gave it a good flush out under the tap and I just let it dry. I put paper towels and dried it out, and then I've just been watering it. Once it is coming to the point where it's dry, so there's nothing in the bottom, and then I just give it a little water. And it's been doing much better. And why do I have such a common Hoya? Because I've always loved these flowers. To me, they're some of the best Hoya flowers, and the fragrance is just complements the flower. I mean, the flower looks like a little pink. It smells like it looks like. How can I say that? You can look at it and you can say to yourself, you can imagine what it would smell like, and it's just like you imagined. So it's kind of, the flowers are in the middle, the corona, or the center of the flower, is just this magnificent glassy pink. It's amazing. No wonder they call them the wax flowers. Something special right up here. Let me take this down without taking all the tillandsias down. Calistophylla. It was the only one. I went racing through the door and I nearly hurt myself when I saw this, because I went through the door and I was almost running towards it, because they're not really available too much. It's not that they're not beautiful and amazing plants, it's just that people just are not familiar with Hoyas so much in Japan. So they don't really know what they're looking at. And they have beautiful big tags on this. And the problem is with the tags is that it's the same tag for every single plant. Except when I got this Calistophylla, they did have the photograph on the tag of the flower, which makes it sell so much faster, because not everyone is going to know, you know. They're going to look at the name and maybe not bother to look online to see what it looks like. They'll just pass it by, but it does help to sell it. And it's got 3 adventitious growths there, and they are still nice and green. That means it's doing fine. If they start to die back, I know that it might be a root system problem, but I've given it a light water. The water came out the bottom, I drained it out, and that's enough. And I won't water it until it starts to get dry on the surface again. This is a native of Borneo, so I would expect this to kind of like a fair amount of humidity and not to dry out bone dry. I'm just going to have a fight putting this back because I have too many plants. It's my fault, but I can't help it. I'm going to take this one down. I have all these hooks, all different lengths, so that the plants hang at different levels. which makes it easier to cram a whole lot more plants on. If you have different levels, you can have one there, slightly one down underneath it. This is 2 baskets that I use nylon to put together, and I stuff them full of bromeliads. Tillandsias. Spanish moss there. So I've got 3 kinds of Tillandsias here. This one has got offsets, which is neat. Just got the twist tie just to hold it there. Hopefully it'll get some roots that attach, and we got this nice one down the bottom, and I remember its name because who would forget the name? Funkiana. Tillandsia funkiana. Now if that isn't an easy enough name to remember. Now funkiana is... I'm just going to hang this up because, believe it or not, my shoulder's starting to get all the blood taken out of it. Ugh. Everyone experiences that. It's just when you put your arm up in a certain angle, it's just the muscle pinching. That's all. That's what makes you feel like you got an aching arm, but it's just the muscle pinching. So funkiana is quite unusual for a Tillandsia because not only does it have this long snaky like growth pattern, and it's growing on cork, by the way, and I've just attached that with twisty tie to the basket. So not only is it long and pendulous with growth, but its flowers are zygomorphic, which means that they are, if you were to cut the flower in half, it's not identical from one side to the next. So it's kind of like a long tube, and then when it tapers off to the end of the flower, one side has shorter petals than the other. So just look it up. It'll be better just to see an image. Zygomorphic. This is the name that stuck in my mind because there are some cacti that I grow that have zygomorphic flowers. It just means that it's unequal on both sides, so it's pretty unusual. But it just goes to show how much plants are related to one another. This one will also become a big bunch, so it'll grow many long growths, pendulous growths like this, and it'll turn into a big cluster eventually. Okay, so down the bottom, I just got sore. I need to do some stretches. That'll get rid of my stiffness from yesterday. I did a big moving of all my orchids. So this is a Miltonia. Now Miltonia here this is all new growth over the winter. That one. And this. And one more. Now that one there has got that wavy, can you see it? It's kind of got a little bit of a wave to the leaf. That means it's just underwatered. If you see a wavy leaf, you know it's underwatered. So what a great sign for a plant to show you that it's underwatered by having a wavy leaf. And I'm expecting this to have flowers, because inside here is a shadow. That means that there is flowers inside it, and it's going to have a flower it's called a Miltonia DQ purple biwa. I'm pretty sure that would be a hybridized in Japan. And this Miltonia, by the way, is so Once again, you can see the shadow in there, so it's going to have flowers. It falls into active growth during the winter into the springtime, and then after it flowers, and it will kind of not need so much of anything, just to be kept slightly damp. Try to keep it away from the heat. That's why I'm growing this inside, because there's no way I can do it outdoors. Maximum temperature of 29 degrees, although this one has been hybridized with a variety of Miltonia that comes from more Cattleya-like environment. So it's more open, it gets a lot more sunlight, and it tends to dry out quite a bit in between water rains. And it can grow on rocks too, so having that in it, in its DNA, or its hybridization, makes it quite tough, I would think. But I want to grow it bigger to the point that I'm going to divide it and then try some outside sometime. It's in bark. I bought it from someone online, so it was a nice full plant. It was actually 3 bulbs that had a few roots on them, so it was a division of a much bigger plant. And from the description, it's got a lot of neglect, like not paid attention to, but it didn't cause any damage or much at all. It's actually pretty tough, pretty hardy. I wouldn't risk putting it in temperatures over 29 degrees. I think that might be detrimental. And I notice with Miltonias or Oncidiums is once you get those high temperatures, you should put them in a cool room. Don't put them in the direct sun anymore. Preferably a nice fanned, an area that has a fan blowing, or the air conditioner on cool, not cold, okay? Kind of that environment. So I'm looking forward to the flowers on this. And I do water it quite a bit. So you can see in the bottom there, I just need to drain out that little bit there. And looking forward to that. Over here, Sansevieria, cylindrica. There's 2 varieties I have in there. You can actually see a growth popping up. It's in a nice tall vase-like pot. There's a nice big drainage hole in the bottom of this. So plenty of drainage. During this time of the year, I do water it when it dries out. Not as much during the summer because of our high temperatures, high humidity. Next, and it's in flower right now. Look at that little dainty thing. I'm gonna say the wrong name. This is Laboria socialis. And my Laboria here is flowering. It's a bulbous lily. So it comes from South Africa in dry forests. Stony, lives in the stony ground. So it has a shallow root system. Big purplish fleshy bulbs, which help to store water when it gets dry. It's got these lovely green leaves with the silver, so that's attractive even without the flowers. Being a heavy clumper, it will clump up this pot for sure. This pot wasn't chosen for the plant. I just had this spare and I thought it kind of suits it, so I gave it a try. The last one is a Ludicea. This is also an orchid, and it's native to tropical parts of Asia, overgrowing in sphagnum. And it is inside a cache pot. So there's one pot inside the other, kind of like that, right? You can see here that it's moist. It's not soggy. It's just moist. And why is it? And if you want to know how I pot up my plants in sphagnum, then check out a earlier video. You will see it there. Potting orchids in sphagnum moss, because there's a technique, a way to put it in. Well, technique's not the word. It's just there's a easier way to do it so that you don't compact it, but it's firm enough in the pot, but not like a concrete or squished together like soil. It's once you're finished, you will have this nice air. You have a lot of aeration in the sphagnum moss, which is better for it. And I bought this online. Ludicia, well, I can't remember the last name, but it's one of the more common ones. So it's got these lovely velvety leaves with a silvery white stripe. Not sure about pests or anything, but we'll keep an eye on it. So this came as this nice rooted cutting. It also has you can see it's starting to send a shoot off, because we can't see it right now, but it'll pop up soon. So that having it in there keeps it happy and moist at the roots, so not wet. Makes it a happy plant, and it'll grow well. So I'm looking forward to it. Alright, I've talked a lot. And our last one, lest we forget. I was going to forget too. Okay, so let me just grab it right here. This is another Tillandsia cotton candy, and this one is a Tillandsia arrogantia, and this is a Tectorum, and this one is one that grows in Brazil in desert-like conditions. I'm going to put it down so I can get to the tag. Wait a minute. Where are you, tag? So I can see your name. Paliacea. Now Paliacea grows in Brazil on pretty xerophytic environment between rocks and very dry, well draining soil, and in amongst cacti and succulent plants. So it's a xerophytic Tillandsia. It's supposed to have fragrant flowers, we'll see. So I'm growing it on this wreath, and you can see that it has the fuzzy trichomes, and trichomes are just a fancy word for the scale-like hairs. Under a microscope they look like scales, but to your naked eye they look like hairs. And anything that's silver and has a lot of hairs on it like this, you know that it's lithophytic or xerophytic. You know, it grows in deserts or it grows on rocks. I think that one's could be a bit of both, not sure. Cotton candy is definitely a hybrid with two different plants. It's got this flower bud coming up. I think it's gonna come to nothing. Yep, I think it's aborted its flower. And when I bought it, it's probably just stayed dry for too long. I don't know if I did it or if it was already aborted. There was already a bud like that when I bought it, so I don't think it's anything I did, because I got another one that's had flowers for me and they opened and it was fine. But it doesn't matter. Plant's healthy. Alright. Put it back up. Once again, everything has hooks, etc., so that I can hang everything up. Right, I've talked myself to death. Talked a lot, but it was fun. I enjoyed talking with you all and sharing my plans, and yep, I had fun doing this, and if you had fun too, give me a thumbs up. And if there's something I forgot to explain or something that maybe you don't quite agree with, then you feel free to send me a message, because I'm not in it to be right. I'm in it to get better at what I do. So anything that makes sense to me and I see the results in the plants, then I don't hesitate to do that. So it's all about sharing and growing better plants, because that's what we're doing it for. That's what we love to do. And yeah. And until next time, don't forget that looking after your plants is not a chore, but it's part of your self-care. So if you're feeling a bit down or a little bit depressed, maybe you've had a bad week, just get a plant and start caring for it. Give it a good water, prune it, wipe its leaves, and you'll feel much better for it. And until next time, we'll see you. Okay. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.